Now, as I've mentioned before, there's not much, unfortunately, in the way of treatment options. When you're addicted to opiates, they have a medicine like Suboxone that you can take, and it greatly reduces the withdrawals, which is fantastic, right? But really, there's nothing like that for benzos, unfortunately, which is why I feel benzos are the most frightening and difficult drug to get off of probably any drug. I mean, it's the only one that can one of the only ones that can literally kill you. If you take a lot of heroin and you're on heroin for a long time and you start coming off it, you'll want to die, you'll feel like you're going to die, but you're not going to die. Most likely, you're not going to die weaning off heroin or being ripped off heroin cold turkey even. People they shake and they go through these horrible sickness for a couple weeks and then they come out of it. But, if you're on a high dose of the Valium and suddenly you run out and you just can't take it anymore, you could literally have a seizure and die. And that's pretty scary. So, unfortunately, there are no, miracle pills to take to help reduce things. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you can take a SSRI or something that can help with depression and those symptoms and some anxiety symptoms. But SSRIs can carry their own sense of side effects. And when you're going through a lot of benzo withdrawal, which in itself is its own thing, it's a little frightening to jump onto something new. And you may not even need something new, but you may, at least for a short period of time, until you level out your chemistry and things. So don't be afraid to explore it. But I think if you're, of course, speak to your doctor about all of this. I mean, I'm not a physician. Consult your doctor about this and do your own research for sure. So let's talk more about treatment, okay? So there isn't a miracle pill out there going to reduce all your symptoms, but there are a number of other things you can do and other methods that can help with symptom management, withdrawal management, and promote a healthier state of mind and more balance in your life, which is going to help the process, right? So one thing is cognitive behavioral therapy. This is huge. If you can afford therapy, I really strongly advise you to seek out a cognitive behavioral therapist, because there's a lot of funny things that happen when you're very stressed out, very depressed, and very anxious. Those things reframe literally your entire perception of everything. And what I mean by that is whenever there's something that's ambiguous, whenever you have to fill in the blank on something, interpret something, there's this sort of an innate psychological function that we all have where we have to fill in that blank. So someone looks at you in a crowd and you're not sure, what was that look? How did they mean that look? Well, if you're not suffering stress and anxiety and depression, you just go, I don't know what that look was. But if you are, you jump to the worst. You go, if you're depressed, you go, oh, that person's looking at me like I'm an asshole. That person hates me. Look how he looked at me, like I was disgusting. That person's judging me. And if you're anxious, you go, I think that person wants to kill me. You start catastrophizing, or you insert a negative film to everything. And while that seems maybe a little funny at first, when you start doing that to everything, it starts repainting everything you see in your life. And it starts becoming, again, a continuum where it programs all your thoughts to be negative, and your thoughts become negative behaviors and negative feelings. And those feelings are prolonged and, feed back into the anxiety that you're feeling from weaning. And that in return continues to feed the thoughts, and that continues to change the chemistry for the worst. So if you're clever and you're intelligent and you understand this, you can see it. You can spot it out, and you get better at spotting it out, and you can realize that's an illusion. Again, going back to like the body snatchers, that's the host, that's the virus in me doing that. Ignore that. And that's what cognitive behavioral therapy essentially, at least in some aspects, does for you with a therapist. Or even if you can't afford a therapist, I encourage you to learn some of these techniques. There's resources on the internet, and just start to implement those, because that's what really helped me. I couldn't afford therapy or anything, but I was fortunate enough that during this period when I was weaning off benzos, I was already studying psychology, and I was studying cognitive behavioral therapy and things. And I just started implementing these things in my life. I started going, oh my God, I can see these. This is a real phenomenon. I'm doing that right there. I'm negatively imprinting things, and I'm catastrophizing. And one of the things we do catastrophizing is, as we're weaning, we just start thinking the most worst, negative, dreadful things. Like, I'm never going to get off this. My chemistry is never going to be normal. I'll never be able to work again. I may have to drop out of school, or my relationships are going to suffer. My husband, my wife, my spouse is going to leave me. You start, I won't be able to be there for my child. What is my life going to be like? And you start sinking down the hole at that point. And really what you just need to do is, kind of going back to the metaphor of a hurricane, waiting out a hurricane, just realize the hurricane doesn't stay there. He may stay there for a little bit of time, and it may seem devastating, but eventually it continues on. And life after benzo is the same thing, and the whole experience of weaning is a very similar phenomenon. you have to remind yourself that. You have to be, if you can't have people around you that's positive enough to tell you that, or you can't have a counselor to tell you that every week, write it down, because it's so easy to quickly get off track and lose sight of that. And you need a lot of self-reaffirming. There's also psychodynamic counseling, which may benefit you. They also help with symptoms and things like that. But the psychodynamic stuff is interesting because a lot of us have anxiety from other environmental factors and influences, like maybe you had trauma as a child, or you had a relationship, or you went through something. There's some kind of thing, or maybe there's something in your personality and in the way you were developing during a critical period in your life that you kind of your personality grew a little crooked because of certain factors. And while we like to say we are the best people to know ourselves and to treat ourselves, and to a degree that's certainly true, we're also the last people to see things in ourselves and our flaws, because our personality has a set of defense mechanisms that are essentially like blinders. They turn us on to they try to protect our feelings by blinding us to things about us that we'd rather not see. And it's kind of like considerately killing us, it's considerately harming us with the best intentions, but at the same time, it's hurting us at the same time. It's kind of a bad relationship, So having an outside perspective, someone that's trained with a real sense of science, or a sense of philosophy of how to get through and experience those things and help us, process them and whatnot, can really be healing and transformative for us in a long, like transformative your whole life. Not just it helped me while I was going through this thing, but it transformed everything in my life, because this thing was causing me not to make meaningful relationships, or whatever your pattern was, And this stuff can be healed, it really can be healed. It's you're not just a victim of what happened to you. You can heal. This ain't gonna happen overnight. And this is where I have a little bit of an issue with psychiatry and the aspect of it only being a symptoms treatment method, because, okay, say you go through a painful divorce, and, you sink into a depression, and we give you a pill it'll help with the serotonin, and we can help you feel a little bit better, but it didn't affect what you went through, right? Now, the hope is that you'll just start feeling better and you'll just move on. But if you don't process that, if you don't come to terms with what happened, or maybe you didn't get out of the marriage, maybe you're just terribly sad about the marriage. If you don't change those, find a way to process it, or change the environment, or make some kind of meaningful change in your life, all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid over a wound that's never going to really heal. So really, and that's not condemning psychiatry, I'm just saying it works best in a lot of cases, most cases probably, when you have a mixed methods approach, meaning you address the biological things, but you also address the psychosocial and behavioral components of these problems too, So seek counseling. And if you can't, this is a situation that you're in you're going to have to become your own advocate and your own therapist in a sense, if you can't afford one. Because you're going to have to walk yourself out of the woods, or you're going to have to carry yourself out of this storm. Now let's talk about adjunct therapy. And by adjunct therapy, I mean additional therapy or therapeutic things that you can be doing in conjunction with a lot of the other self-work, whether you're going to a counselor, whether you have medication that your doctor's helping you with medication, other things that are going to help you with symptoms management, and just integrating your life back, resembling some sense of normalcy. One that helped me tremendously, and I'm a little biased because I'm an artist, was art therapy. Like I benefited so much just creating art. I tried to throw myself into it. It wasn't very good art because I was undergoing this, this terrible thing, and it was actually really hard to create art and to get into it and feel it like I used to, before I was going through this withdrawal. I mean, because everything during the withdrawal just sucks. Everything's just cold and dark and no fun. But the art therapy gave me an anchor. It gave me something to take my attention away from some of these symptoms, which is pretty powerful. And for you guys, this could be as simple as getting a art therapy coloring book or something and just coloring daily. Or you could be journaling. I don't know, whatever your creative outlet is. I just advise you strongly to engage into a creative outlet. Even if you don't have one, go find one, play guitar, whatever it is, just dive into an art, because it can be really healing in that aspect. And it's beautiful, right? And also when you come out of this, you'll probably be a better artist, or you'll have a new thing that you can carry with you, which is always great. Another thing that helped me was watching comedy films. You've heard it said many times that comedy heals the soul. Laughter is very therapeutic, and And so one thing that helped me a lot was I just started watching as many comedy films as I could, and I was really valuing the moments that I had when I could actually laugh during a comedy film, because a lot of the times as you're weaning, you're not in a really funny sense of mood, right? And sometimes you're just sitting there just sort of going through the motions, but you'll laugh here and there, you'll smile, and nothing else. You'll have these moments of a good feeling, a flicker of the light in you, and that's good, and that's what you want to do. Keep fostering that flicker, that light in you, and keep it burning, and keep remembering that there is love in you, and there is this goodness, and happiness is not gone forever. You will ride out the storm and come out the other side. Another area which I advocate probably the most is exercise, even if it's just going for a walk. Exercise, and many studies have proven this over the years, scientifically proven this, that exercise has wonderful benefits on our neurochemistry, in our bodies in general. Exercise definitely has a positive effect on mood, especially anxiety and depression. Exercise is wonderful. So if you can exercise, granted, when you're coming off benzos, sometimes you have, racing heart rate and sort of strange symptoms that may hinder you a little bit. But when you can exercise, go for it. And if you can exercise hard, if you're in that kind of place, the better you exercise, the more relief you're going to get, and stick with it, Another thing is support group. Support groups are so critical to healing from any drug, because it's really hard to do this alone. Some of us won't have support groups. And if you don't have, meaning like family, friends, spouse, whatever, and if you don't have that, there's support groups online, which I found really helpful. With other people going through it, encouraging stories, they're just wonderful support group, people that write you and ask how you're doing and give you advice on things. And when you start feeling too dark and gloomy and like this is never going to end, they're there to remind you that, this is going to pass, this too shall pass. And you can find those online. There's a number of benzo support groups out there. And another area which worth mentioning is actually really important, and if you're going to a therapist, they can help you with this. But if not, this is going to be very important to life after a benzo, and that's exploring your unconscious trauma or the problems that got you, that are correlated or related to your anxiety. But exploring these things without too much commitment or too much investment in the emotion, because as I said earlier, your depression, anxiety kind of put a negative film on things, and sometimes when you're exploring these things, you'll overemphasize these elements because of all the symptoms that you're going through. You'll start, this is why this is happening to me, and you don't want to put too much interpretation on it. You just but you want to start to get a sense for certain things in your life, because one side effect of coming off benzos, especially life after benzos, is whatever problems you had prior, they come back, because the benzo sort of numbs you to your problems. They take away the fear and the anxiety and the worry and the stress. They sort of just put a blanket over all those things. And stress is not a bad thing entirely in itself. Stress was a very evolutionary byproduct that facilitated our survival by allowing us to know when there was danger, so that way we can adjust our behavior and our environment in some way to protect ourselves from danger. And a base level, that's running from a predator. But in a psychological cognitive affective model, it's relationships, it's abuse, mental trauma, it's other things. It's not being happy where you are. It's things like that may seem very small at first, but can really build a giant wall over time. So my advice is to sort of, and this can be helpful when you're journaling, get an idea of these things and just sort of know they're out there. Like you're in the middle of a storm and you're trying to identify these things, but you're not trying to play, Sigmund Freud with yourself. You just want to acknowledge some of these things that you might have to work with later. And if you can do some personal work in the meantime, maybe you have some personal revelations that are transformative and healing for you, hey, that's great. But again, my advice is whatever you do, don't get too serious involved in it, because you can really trip yourself up during your healing process. And right now, you're just healing. You're just healing symptom-wise. You're not here to play advanced psychotherapy on all these deeper traumatic issues that you might have gone through. This is not the time for that, okay? This is not the time for that. But it is a time to be aware of those things and make a note, this is what we're going to come back to in the future. Uplifting music, okay? I listen to a lot of music, and the instinct when you're going through depression, anxiety, and things like that is like you start gravitating toward like sad songs and stuff, and don't do that, because that'll just dig the well deeper for you. Listen to some Bob Marley, whatever it is. Put on something happy and uplifting and motivating, and it really, music's been shown to have a positive effect on chemistry too. Another is systematic desensitization, and by that I mean getting out of the house. Desensitizing to your anxiety. A lot of people, when they're coming off benzos, they develop agoraphobia. Mine got so bad that I didn't want to leave the house. At one point, I couldn't even drive my car just because I was having so much anxiety. I didn't want to be on the road. I know people that go through this and they can't even walk to their mailbox, let alone their stop sign. And at that point, then it becomes really fearful, because the idea is, great, now, I need medication. I look at it, I can't even go to my mailbox. I can't live like this. You start saying all those things, I can't live like this. But you're not going to live like this. You're going through a storm. You'll be able to come back outside, and you'll go to your mailbox again. You'll drive your car, and all these things will come back to you. But there is a phenomenon that after even you're done weaning, as I said before, that there's a continuum between chemistry and thoughts, that you can get into a cycle, a cycle here, where even after you're completely done weaning and you're all done, you still have this sort of lingering agoraphobia, meaning you can't leave your house, or just lingering social anxiety. And that's going to take some work. And that's why during the process of weaning, I'm so big on advocating doing the hard work, meaning get outside, go for walks, get out of your comfort zone. I know it's going to be hard, but it has positive effect of your healing, not just during the symptoms of things, but life after too. It's going to have a lot of tremendous healing effect. So as hard as it is, even if it's just every day you walk to the stop sign and back, do that every single day, multiple times. You have a corner store, walk to the corner store. You know what I mean? Get out of your house, go sit in nature, get out of your house first of all. Sit in nature, because again, the instinct is just to lock yourself up in a dark room and feel bad and brood and feel hopeless. And you got to change that, as hard as it is. You got to fake it to make it in this situation. And lastly, let's talk about nutrition and unhealthy lifestyles that we have to reinvent. So first, nutrition. Drink lots of water. Lemon helps with gut problems and digestive problems that I found anyway. So I drink a lot of lemon water. Water is good in general. It just flushes the system. There's no caffeine in it, no impurities. It fuels and feeds and nourishes every cell in our body. So water is good. Water is life. Drink water. Fish, omega-3s. I ate a lot of fish, a lot of salmon. You can take omega-3 tablets. That's been shown to have a ton of healthy effects on the body. And everything I'm saying, I hope you take time eventually to go and research these things if you haven't. If you're not familiar with them, go check out omega-3s and see what their effects on anxiety or the body, just general. So I recommend fish and omega-3s. Mixed vegetables. I ate a ton of vegetables. Just, again, the idea is you're going through a storm. Let's nourish the body. Let's nourish the mind. And let's turn off all the negative. That's what we're doing. We're on a vacation. We're going on a vacation during this storm in ourselves, as silly as that sounds. So be good to yourself. Eat right. Drink right. Sleep right. Do everything right as you can. I mean, you got to walk the line here to get healthy here. Chocolate, it's pleasure food. Not so much. A little bit of chocolate here and there. It makes you feel good, right? Sometimes with too much caffeine too much sugar, it can create anxiety in you and stuff. And of course, you don't want to blow up and get 500 pounds because you're depressed and you're just sitting there eating chocolate cake every day. But, some soul food or some pleasure food, certainly, if it helps brighten your mood, even for a few, why not? So benzos make us unhealthy. Let's look at this final concept. Benzos make us unhealthy. As I said many times, paints a negative lens for us outside the side effects of just physical stuff that we're going through with the sleep and the anxiety and everything. But we start to become cut off from people or our loved ones, become agitated and kind of just really difficult with people we love, and that can be a hard thing for them, because they're trying to take care of us. And it's just all these different variables that sort of go in hand to hand that sort of create an unhealthy lifestyle. And there's a chance that there was unhealthy lifestyles prior to taking benzos or before you hit the wall or started weaning off of benzo, and this is really where this experience, if you allow it, kind of going back to the Count of Monte Cristo, if you allow this experience, there can be a silver lining at the end. There can be this cathartic, life-changing, for the better experience that you come out of this with. But you've got to do the work, and you've got to fight. I mean, you're in a fight right now. This is going to be hard. It's going to take everything you have. You can come out of this stronger than you've ever been, and that's a fact. That's not positive thinking or anything. That's a damn fact. And I've read so many stories and talked to so many people that have gone through these experiences and seen so many lives transformed for the better. And as I keep telling you, there is life after benzo. Your chemistry will eventually get better. You will be happy again. Your anxiety can be controlled. I mean, all these things, but they're going to take work. If you're thinking you're just going to sit here, sweat it out, and go back to the same lifestyle as before and making no changes in diet or behavior or your thoughts or how you treat people or experiencing your, how you process your experiences in previous, earlier developmental stages in your life and things like that, you're probably not going to have much of a change, right? So it's going to take everything. It's all or nothing that we're in. So reinvent a healthier lifestyle. Make that your goal. You're going to reinvent a healthier lifestyle. Whether it's exercising, it's being more connected to your family, and a lot of this is going to come anyway. It's just going to come as a reaction to your experiences. Hopefully, I mean that's what I've been observing. A lot of people just were motivated to change. I saw a lot of lifestyle changes and a lot of dynamic life changes. People went back to college and they changed their major. They quit their job and went to pursue a new career that they realized they wanted to do the entire time. They got out of bad relationships and got into a healthier one. They healed themselves with past family that maybe they hadn't been speaking to, and there was all these changes, and they're all waiting for us, right? They're all there to be embraced. So I encourage you to embrace that without rambling too long here.
Hey everyone, I've just released my new book on benzo recovery called The Powers Manual, Benzo Recovery Guide. Many of you have asked for it, and finally I'm able to offer it to you. Powers Manual encompasses everything I know about benzodiazepine dependence and recovery, stemming not only from my personal experience with benzo recovery, but combined with my knowledge as a soon-to-be licensed doctoral-level clinical psychologist. The therapeutic techniques and tools I use to make a full drug recovery are included in this book. The Powers Manual covers everything from symptoms management and taper plan to help with sleep, diet, exercise, and even uses cognitive behavioral techniques to address the pre-existing condition of anxiety and depression. Recovery is possible, but it will require us to fight, not flight.